Hi, everybody. Welcome to our peer review prep video. You'll need to watch this right before we have the peer review, at least a day before. I'm going to try to keep this as short as possible. I have a lot to cover. Of course, once we do this peer review once, then you'll kind of be experienced at it and it won't be a big deal. But I do need to kind of get everybody on board, and there's not enough time in class for us to do this sort of training in class. So I'm asking you to watch this video instead. So while I've done peer reviews for 30 years now, and I really do believe in them and they work, I've never done them over Zoom before. So this is a complete experiment. I expect everything to go wrong. So if you are one of the students for whom something goes wrong and you end up not being able to actually do the peer review during our class, that's fine. I'm not going to hold it against you. I know I said you need to actually attend both peer reviews in order to be able to give the essay to me, for me to give you feedback on that third due date. But if you're here and you're trying it, and if for some reason it doesn't work for you, that's fine. That's mostly for people who don't finish the essay and don't show up to class. So don't worry about that. So very quickly, I just want to mention the reason that we even bother doing this. I mean, why don't I just have you sort of write the essay and turn it into me and I put a grade on it, and then you write the next one and we do it again, is because you don't really learn a lot about writing and you don't improve your writing very much by doing things that way. Really, the best way for you to improve your writing is to have somebody else who's not living inside your head read what you've written and give you feedback on it. And the reason is because, just as one example, you might write a really funky sentence that's difficult to read, but it's not difficult to read to you. You wrote it and you know what you mean, so yeah. But what can happen is if you get someone else to actually look at what you've written, they'll see it. They will see that funky sentence and they can say to you, I'm having trouble reading this. And so you actually get to see your writing through somebody else's eyes, if that makes sense. And it's a great way to really sort of see your weaknesses and see where you can make your writing stronger. There's really nothing like it, having somebody else read your writing. So that's why peer review really does work. By the way, the reason it's called a peer review is because you're reviewing each other's papers and you are each other's peers. So it's a peer review, right? So for this to work, you need to have a local copy of your paper saved to your computer. You're going to be sending your file through the chat in Zoom to another person that you're going to be hooked up with. And in order to do that, you actually need to have a copy of your paper saved to your computer, like saved to your desktop, or saved to your documents folder, or saved to your download folder. If your paper is saved someplace else, like in the Zoom, or sorry, in the cloud, like the Word Online cloud, or if it's saved to OneDrive, you're not going to be able to grab it in order to actually send it through the chat in Zoom. So let me talk about that first. So if you went to office365.psu.edu and actually installed Microsoft Word onto your computer, or if you already had Word on your computer, you're probably fine. If you know for sure that you have your paper saved to My Documents and you know what it's called and you know where it is on your computer, locally on your computer, you're probably fine. You might actually be able to skip a couple minutes ahead in this video. But there are people who, they don't know where their essay is saved to. They just know where they need to go get it. But it doesn't necessarily mean they have a copy saved to their actual computer, which you need, right? So I need to talk about that a little bit. I'm going to do a screen share real quick. So say you went to Office 365 and you didn't install Word. Remember, what I wanted you to do was go to this button here and install Office onto your computer. But say you didn't do that. Say you're using Word Online here instead. Some of you might actually have to do this. If you're using Word Online, the problem is when you save your document, you don't have a local copy of it saved to your computer. It's being saved to the Word Online cloud. And when it comes time for you to share that file with somebody over Zoom, not going to be able to do it because you don't have a copy of it, actually. So if you are currently using Word this way through Word Online and your documents, you're typing your paper this way, and your documents are saved to the cloud, and what you need to do is open your paper in Word Online like you normally would, and you need to go to File, and you need to go to Save As, and then you need to download a copy. And when you download a copy, of course, it'll give you your own local copy. You can save it anywhere you want to, but it'll ask you, do you want to download a copy? Just say yes. And then in this case, it's being downloaded to my downloads folder, but I'll have a copy of it, right? And then I can drag it off my downloads folder and put it on my desktop or whatever. But you need that local copy. The other problem that can sometimes happen when you are working in Word, if you're not paying attention to where it's being saved, you might be saving your documents to OneDrive. OneDrive is Microsoft's kind of cloud solution for saving documents. And if you can't point at your My Documents folder and say, that is my English, my essay one for English, if you don't have it, but if you have to go somewhere to go get it online, like OneDrive, that means you don't have a copy of it yourself. So in this case, you can go to office365.psu.edu and you can go to your OneDrive, just click on this OneDrive like I just did here, and you can open up your paper. And basically you need to do the exact same thing again. You need to go to File, Save As, and then download a copy of it. And you'll need to download a copy so you have an actual local copy of your own paper. Okay, that's really important, or else you won't be able to share it with anyone else. So that's the first thing you need to make sure that you do. Okay, I'm going to share something else here real quick. So after you get that kind of done and you know you have your own copy of your paper locally on your computer, you'll be good to go and you'll be ready to share it with somebody over Zoom. So now I need to talk about how that's going to work. So first of all, how the peer review will work. Give me 1 second here. Yeah. So the first thing you're going to do is, once you get in front of somebody else's paper, and I'm going to explain how that works in a second, the first thing you need to do is hit your caps lock key. Okay, so you're going to hit your caps lock key. So everything you type into somebody else's, you're going to be typing right into each other's papers. And when you do that, everything you type today is going to be in all capital letters. The reason why I have you do that, it's a very low-tech way. So when you get your paper back, you'll actually very easily see everything that someone has added into your paper. So make sure that every letter you type today, everything is in all caps. If you want to change the color of your font so it stands out more, you can do that for the person. If you want to highlight it, if you know how to do all that in Word, you can do that, but you don't have to. As long as you're typing in all capital letters, the person will be able to see the feedback that you put in your in their paper for them, okay? And so what's going to happen is I'm going to put everybody into a breakout room in Zoom. Basically, that's just a private Zoom room. You're going to be in a room with one other person. That's it. You're only going to share your paper with one other person. If we do have an odd number of people in class, say there are 23 people in class, then one group is going to be a group of 3. There's no way around that. But it's fine. The amount of work that you need to do isn't going to change. You're only going to need to share your paper with one other person, and you're going to be reading one other person's paper, okay? So in order to share your file over Zoom, I need to actually start Zoom, and I need to show you what the breakout room is going to look like, and then we need to talk about the chat menu in Zoom. There's a separate menu in Zoom where you can send chat messages back and forth, and we're going to be sending our files that way. So I'm going to stop this recording now because I need to edit in a separate recording showing you how that works. So I'll be back in a second. Okay, everybody, so what we've got here is a simulated Zoom room. This is generally what it should look like when you are in your room with one other person. Like I said, if we have an uneven number of people in class, one of the Zoom breakout rooms will have 3 people in it, but you only need to read one other person's paper. So if you do happen to be in one of the Zoom rooms that has 3 people in it, you just need to decide who's going to read whose paper, right? But you shouldn't be reading 2 papers. You should just be swapping your paper with one other person. Of course, if you're in the room with only one other person, then it'll be obvious, right? So the first thing you should do when you get into your Zoom room, you should share your email addresses with each other, because I pretty much figured out that 50 minutes is not going to be enough for us to actually read through each other's entire papers. We're going to run out of time. And I do want you to read the whole paper. So what that means is basically our 50-minute peer review class over Zoom is pretty much just going to start the process. Maybe you'll get halfway through the paper or something like that. But you're going to need to continue the peer review on your own. And what I really want you to do is before the day is over, before that same day is over, like by 9 o'clock or something, you need to send the paper back to its owner, and you need to have read the rest of it on your own time. Please don't make your partner sit around waiting for you. She never sent my paper back to me. Get to it. Maybe you have time right after class and you can just finish it right away and send it off. Do that if you can, but if you don't, if you have to run to another class, find some time during that day to finish it and send it back to its owner. To do that, you're going to need each other's email addresses. So the first thing you should do is share your email address with each other. Either just tell it to each other and scribble it down, or you can even send it through the chat if you want to. But make sure that you definitely grab each other's email addresses before you start. That's how you're going to end up getting the paper back to the person, because you're not going to be able to finish it during class. Okay, so after you sort of share each other's email addresses, you got each other's email addresses down, you need to open up the chat menu in Zoom. Some of you know what the chat menu is because you've been using it already anyway, and if you do, that's great, but just in case you don't, if you look along the bottom of your Zoom screen, this video is not going to show it because the video doesn't capture that far down. But it's along the same bottom edge of the Zoom screen where your microphone icon is that you've been clicking on and off to talk with me, that I've mentioned a couple times. Along that same edge, you'll see a button that says Chat, and that will open up the chat screen. Another way, in case for some reason you don't see that chat icon, it's possible you might have it turned off accidentally. And if you do, the other way to open up the chat menu is if you hit the Alt key and the H key on your keyboard at the same time. So the keyboard that you're typing on, hit Alt, which is the key that says ALT, and then hit the letter H at the same time, and that'll open up the chat menu as well. You're not going to be able to do this without opening up the chat screen, so you need to do that if you don't know how. I'm going to open up mine right now, and you'll see what it looks like. What happens is basically a little screen opens up here, and this is how you chat, right? This is resizable, by the way. You can make it bigger and smaller, etc. So this is how we're going to be sending our files back and forth to each other. Remember, this needs to be a Word file. Right? And you need to know where you've saved it because you're going to need to tell the chat where it is in order to send it to your partner. So if in this chat window at the very bottom you'll see it says File. And in order to send a file, you need to click this button that says File. And if you click File, basically another menu opens up and it's asking you what file do you want to send. So you need to go and find the file that is your essay. So you need to know where you've saved it to. I've saved mine to my desktop here. Let me see if I can find it. It's here somewhere. And Matt, my partner, he is going to do the same thing. While I'm sending him mine, he's going to send me his. Here, I'm going to send mine. So what you do is you choose your file and you hit Open, and then it'll send it. It takes a couple minutes, so even though it might show up on your screen right away when the person sends you theirs, it might take a couple seconds for it to show up for you to actually be able to download it because it takes a couple minutes. But see, Matt has sent me his too, and when when I send him mine, it's got a little green check mark next to it that means this has been sent to the other person. When he sent me his, notice at the bottom it says Download. So the only way you can see this paper is by downloading it. So if you click the download button, it'll ask you where do you want to save this. You can choose wherever you want to save it. I'm just going to save it to my desktop because it's easy for me to get to. And you'll notice here, this is the name of his file here. It says Example Rough Draft, and I'm just going to save it. So now I actually have his paper. So it's pretty simple. So what I want you to do at this point is I actually want you to stay in class. Keep the Zoom screen open. I'm going to exit full screen here, and I'm going to resize my screen like I've been sort of suggesting you do all along, sort of make the screen smaller for you to be able to have multiple windows open at the same time. And so I'm going to kind of make this small, and I'm going to go find where I downloaded his paper from. And in this case, I know I saved it to my desktop, so it should be here somewhere. Let's see if I can find it. I have a lot of crap on my desktop. So here it is right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this open, and I'm going to open it. Probably when you open up the other person's paper, you're going to have to click a button at the very top in this yellow ribbon that says Enable Editing. That'll allow you to actually type in it. If you don't do that, you won't be able to type into the paper. And then what you'll do at this point is make sure you've hit your caps lock key, like I just mentioned in the video before, and this is where you'll start putting your comments into the paper. First thing I'm going to write in this case is I'm going to say, I like your title. Whoops, see that? I'm not in all caps, and I need to be. If you don't have all your comments in all caps, it just makes it harder for the person to see it. So, and so you'll be writing comments all throughout the paper. You're going to look at the introduction first, and you might have something to say about it. Then you'll look at the thesis, make sure all the pieces are there, et cetera, et cetera. Later on in this video, I'm going to be asking you to make sure that you not only read, but that you download and print out our peer review guide, which is on Box. This basically, it tells you exactly what it is I want you to be looking for as you're reading each other's papers, okay? I think that's everything I wanted to mention about this, about how the chat file transfer works on Zoom. Again, you're probably not going to be sending the paper back to the person because we're going to run out of time. What'll happen is I'll show up in class on your screen, and I'll bring everybody back together, and I'll say, we've run out of time. Make sure you have your partner's email address, and make sure before the day is over, you send the completed peer-reviewed paper back to your partner. Okay? All right, so I'm going to stop this part of the video, and we're going to edit it together because I have more I still need to tell you about how the peer review works. So bye, Matt. Thank you very much. We'll come back in a second. Hi, everybody. So we're back, and now I need to talk to you about what happens once you have the other person's paper in front of you open in Word on screen. Just a couple sort of ground rules for how the peer review works and a couple things you need to do, okay? So once you have the other person's paper open, everywhere the urge strikes you, just write comments into the paper using all caps, like I mentioned, okay? Comments are just easier to find if you write them in all caps. And again, you can change the color if you want to change the color to something, or if you want to highlight your comments that you're putting into the paper, it's fine, but you don't have to. As long as they're in all caps, the person will be able to see them, right? So as you read, make comments at the ends of sentences. Sometimes you might break right into the middle of sentences or the ends of paragraphs. Basically, everywhere is fair game. Anywhere the mood strikes, stop reading and type your comments anywhere and everywhere throughout the paper, okay? You're just busting right into the paper and you're typing comments right inside the lines, all right? Also, when you get to the end of the paper, try to write a few sentences about the essay, just what you thought about it overall, all right? Don't only do this. Make sure that you're writing comments throughout the entire essay. This is really important, okay? So if you're having trouble, for example, if you're having trouble seeing any of the separate chunks that we discussed in class over the last couple weeks, like the introduction of the thesis, like if you can't tell there's a thesis, or it seems like the paper starts with the thesis and there's no introduction, you need to say, like, I think you're missing a chunk here. Or if the body paragraphs don't seem to be there, or if the person brings up, say, 3 reasons in their thesis, but you can only see 2 body paragraphs, there should be at least three body paragraphs. If stuff seems to be missing, you really need to say something right up front, okay? You need to let the writer know that there are problems with the organization, that you're getting lost in the paper, or you can't seem to find such and such a section, like I can't find your separate thesis points anywhere. Where are they? All right. Keep in mind, if you want to help the writer out by ironing out sentences for each other, you know, we have a tendency when we're writing, every once in a while, we'll write a sentence that's just super funky. If you come across one of those, you'll know it because you'll read it. You'll have to read it more than once to understand it. And if that's the case, go ahead and try to rewrite the sentence for the person, or at least give them some idea of maybe how they can iron out the sentence to make it a little easier to read. People love this kind of help, by the way. The same thing goes if you find a weird word that someone seems to be using and the word doesn't seem to be right, flag it for the person and maybe give them an idea. You can type right into their paper what word they should be using instead, okay? But don't take your eye off the big picture. Even though you might be helping each other out with individual sentences and how they sound and if they're working or not, don't take your eye off the big picture. And that's all the separate parts. All the parts of this essay need to be there. The introduction needs to be there and be clear. The thesis needs to be there. And all the pieces inside the thesis need to be there, right? The person has to have that position statement telling us where they stand. They have to list out their separate reasons. If any of those things seem to be missing, flag it for the person. You need to say, I can't find your position statement in your thesis. Let them know. It's perfectly okay, by the way, if you come across a sentence that you can't understand, if you can't help them reword it to make it sound better. If you just read the sentence and you think, what? I don't know what this means. You can write that. That's perfectly fine. You can just say, I don't understand this sentence, or I can't follow this, or you're losing me. That's all perfectly fine comments. It'll let the reader know they need to do, or let the writer know they need to do something, because it's no good if a reader can't follow you, right? So you need to remember when you're typing comments into somebody else's paper, the clearer and more thorough your comments are, the better. Try to use complete sentences. If you type some kind of comment into someone's paper and later on when the person is reading it, they don't understand what you mean, then you just kind of wasted your time. So make sure that you really are being clear with your comments. Don't assume that someone knows what you mean. I find sometimes that writing complete sentences helps because it just, you know, you're being clear to the writer what they need to fix or what you are having a problem with as a reader. So you need to be clear now. You know, you're not going to be sitting next to them. So keep that in mind. You know, when they're working on their paper, you're not going to be there. Only your comments are going to be there. So make your comments work for them. All right. So here's one problem. It's really easy to sit there reading and forget to write comments. You can't let this happen. I know a lot of you are used to maybe reading things but not writing at the same time, but that's what this is about. You're reading and writing all at the same time. So you need to stay in the habit of writing as you read, okay? So to help you do that, for at least this first time around, I want you to write something for every single paragraph, something. You shouldn't let a single chunk of the paper go by without you saying something about it, without you typing some comment. Even if you read the person's introduction and the introduction is great, and you just write like, this introduction is great, I'm with you so far, that's good. But I want you to write something for every chunk. That way the person knows that you were paying attention to everything they were saying and every piece of the paper. You didn't sort of skip over one of them. It would be easy to think that if there are simply no comments at all. But probably you'll be writing more comments than that, right? Get as far as you can in the time we have. 50 minutes is not long. Usually I'd have 75 minutes for us to do this, which is usually plenty of time. So we're probably going to run out of time. So for this reason, I'm going to mention this in the earlier part of the video that I haven't recorded yet, but we're going to record it in a second, but I'll reiterate it here. Make sure the first thing you do when you get into the chat is you share each other's email address with each other, because what's going to happen is we're going to start this process in class of reading each other's papers and giving each other feedback. But in 50 minutes, you're probably never going to get to the end of the paper in time. So what you're going to need to do is finish reading it and putting feedback into the paper on your own. And then you're going to need to email the paper back to the person. So you're going to need to get their PSU email address, and you'll need to attach their paper with your comments in it back to them. Okay, so don't forget to make sure you get the email address of the person that owns the paper. In fact, if you want to, at the very top of your draft, before you send it to the person over Zoom, you could just type your email address onto the paper, and then they'll know it's you. But chances are likely we're not going to finish in 50 minutes, okay? And and I do want you to finish it. I don't want you to just send it back not having read the whole thing. So definitely get each other's email address. I'll talk about that more in class. Really important, when you reach the end of the essay and you're finished, save it, right? If you close it out and if you accidentally don't save it or something, all those comments and the feedback that you left, the other person will be gone. They'll be lost. So don't let that happen. Make sure that you're saving it so that your comments are being saved, so the person will actually get your comments. Okay, so one note about comments I want to mention, the feedback that you're giving each other. The worst thing that can happen is someone sends me a message and says, no one wrote anything on my paper, or everyone said they liked it, but nobody told me what I need to work on. What do I need to do? People who don't get critical comments on their paper feel cheated. I know you might think it's great if you send somebody back their paper and all you've said is, this is good, this is great, I really like it, okay, bye. People feel cheated when you do that. People really do want to know what to work on. And when you do that, they have no idea what to work on. So your job is really to not let this happen, right? It's possible that you may read a really well done first draft. You may be sitting in front of a paper and you may be thinking, wow, this is really great. It makes my paper look terrible. Happens all the time. But that paper isn't perfect, and writing is complicated. There's always something in writing that can be improved. So you need to be very critical and look for those things. Even if you're sitting in front of a paper that just seems like a superstar, amazing paper, there's something in that paper that can be fixed always. And the writer who wrote it really wants to know what that stuff is. They do. So don't cheat that person out of at least giving them some critical feedback. Really, really look for the stuff that can be improved to make the paper better, okay? Because the person is really waiting to hear about that stuff, all right? The idea is you are helping each other make the papers better before I get them. So that's really important. Okay. Then the last thing is, and I'm going to give you this as a separate piece of homework you need to do before the peer review. Before our peer review, it's super important that you read the peer review guideline sheet. This is a longish discussion of the stuff I want you keeping an eye out for as you're reading each other's papers. You can't go into this peer review not having kind of oriented yourself first, right? So what you need to do is actually look at the peer review guideline sheet. I'm going to show you where that is. It's on Box. In the class materials folder, in the Essay 1 taking a position folder, it's this last one down here, number 7. It says Essay 1 peer review guide. It's just about a page and a half long, but you need to read this before the peer review. This kind of mentions some of the things I just mentioned right now, but it goes into much more detail about the actual specific things I want you looking for as you read the introduction, and as you read the thesis paragraph part, and as you read the body paragraphs. I actually ask you to look for some specific things and to keep some specific items in mind as you are reading and writing comments on each other's paper. So you do need to read this peer review guideline sheet. It says taking a position, giving feedback. Okay, you need to read this. And I would really like you to print this out actually and have it beside you, like on the desk, maybe beside you or on your lap or something, as you're reading the person's paper on screen. You could have this kind of printed out and you can refer to it just to make sure that you're on track, that you're actually giving the kind of feedback that I want you to be giving each other. All right. And the way to download, to print this thing out is, see this download button right here. If you click download, it'll allow you to download this right off a box. I know we haven't talked about downloading stuff off a box yet, but it's pretty simple. You download this, or you can just open it in Word. And then I can change the share just to show you where it is. And then you'll have it open in Word here. And then you can print it out. And that's what I'd really like you to do for this, okay? This is important. It would be good for you to have it beside you as you're reading the person's paper, okay? Okay, I think that's the end of this. I know it's been a little bit longer than I wanted it to be, and I'm sorry about that. But yeah, that's the end of the prep video, okay? So really important that you know you have your own local version of your file saved to your computer, else you won't be able to send it through the chat in Zoom. We might hit some technical issues when we are actually in our breakout rooms and trying to send files through chat in Zoom, but I hope not. Then you need to open up the file in Word. By the way, if your essay is not written in Word and saved as a Word file, people aren't going to be able to open it, and it's going to be useless. So make sure that your paper is written and saved in Word. And then we'll be reading each other's papers and giving each other feedback. Probably won't be able to do it in 50 minutes. So you're going to need to share the email address with each other. And I'm going to suggest, rather than waiting forever to finish reading the paper, because we're going to end class with people not having gotten their papers back yet, right? I'd say by the end of that day, by like maybe 9 o'clock that same day, make sure that you've finished reading that person's paper and that you've sent it back to them. You don't want someone else waiting around like, where's my paper? Is she ever going to send it back to me? Don't do that to somebody, right? I would say that same class day, by the end of the day, try to sit down, finish reading it, put feedback in it, and then email it back to the person, okay? All right, I'll see you at our peer review. Good luck to everybody. Oh my God, is this ever gonna work? I hope so. All right, bye.